This is Sheriff Spotlight with the Rockingham County Sheriff's Office, highlighting the office and deputies dedicated to providing law enforcement services and maintaining the trust and support of Rockingham County citizens, all while keeping neighborhoods and communities safe.
Good morning, I'm Sheriff Sam Page. I'm here with the Sheriff Spotlight for a podcast for April 2022. And I'll tell you what, we're almost here at Easter time. And my special guest today is Jason Ramey, our district attorney. Jason, welcome to the Sheriff Spotlight. I know you've never been on the show before, so I just want you to relax and just enjoy. And we'll have some questions for you, but I just want people to know kind of what you do. Part of the reason why I do the show is to let people know what we're doing at the Sheriff's Office, working with the criminal justice system, working out in the community, events going on, but also I want to let them know that people that have a part to play in the criminal justice system, which you do, you have a very big part to play. So Jason Ramey, our district attorney, I've got some questions. So are you ready?
Yes, thank you for having me.
Well, we're glad to have you here. Well, a lot of people ask, what does a district attorney do? Who is a district attorney and what do you do? How do you get to be a district attorney?
Well, the district attorney is the elected official for any district that represents the state of North Carolina in all prosecution, any criminal case, traffic matters. The district attorney is the person that is responsible for taking cases to trial, trying cases, sending cases to the grand jury. One of the biggest requirements is that we advise law enforcement, right? So when law enforcement has questions on criminal cases or criminal issues, we work closely together to make sure that things are done the right way, and so that we will be ultimately successful on any case that we bring.
Well, now, when you're working as a district attorney, and you've been working as a district how many years now?
Well, I've been the district attorney for Rockingham County for 4 years.
But you also worked as a prosecutor.
And I was an assistant district attorney for about 5.5 years before that.
And you've worked in Stanly County?
Yes.
And you've also worked in Rockingham County under a past district attorney. Phil Berger Jr. was a district attorney that you worked under, correct?
Yes. Okay.
And have you had opportunity to work with a lot of technology? Have you seen the technology come about now, helping on cases and stuff?
Well, I started out in Stanly, Anson, and Richmond, so a 3-county district. But I'm born and raised in Eden in Rockingham County, so this is home. In 2013, Phil Berger Jr. called me and asked me to come work for him, and I did, and I'm very glad that I came. As far as technology, yes.
Cameras?
Body cameras have gotten so much better, so much more information from the individual cases, the ability to transfer data to defense attorneys has gotten much easier through technology. We can upload videos, send all of the discovery, and discovery is just things that we have in our possession that we're required to turn over to the defense attorneys in order to be fair towards the defendant. And when I first started, we had to copy a lot of that stuff.
There's a lot of manual work.
Yes, manual work. That's not the case now. It's just a few click of the buttons for the most part.
And when you're in court now, do you see it more like, and I added this question here, do you see more that it appears that the jurors and stuff like this have an expectation, they want to see the video?
Yes.
They want to hear recordings, they want to see video,
Right.
So the technology does have a big part to play in the courtroom more so than ever.
Yes. I mean, a video is a accurate recording of what exactly happened, rather than our memories or recollections, which sometimes maybe a little bit off, right? Time passes, things become hazier, but a video is a video. Audio recording is an audio recording. Most of the time with the sheriff's office and with the local police departments, they record interviews now. And I'm sure when you first started, that probably wasn't possible.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, back in the day, I got to tell you something here before I get too far along. Is I've known Jason for a long time. I formerly used to be a school resource officer at Holmes Middle School, and Jason was one of my students. And but he's come a long ways and stuff. I just said we're going back in the day. But the thing is, I remember a time when an officer would come into court, place his left hand on the Bible, raise the right hand, and swear to tell the truth, and his word was golden. But nowadays, people say, "I want to see the video."
Yes.
So there is a big push for technology. I think most of the agencies in Rockingham County and several across the state are now going toward the video. The biggest thing, though, with the video documentation, is storage.
Right.
And so, but we've been able to overcome that, and I'm very appreciative of the county government here, because helping me to get the funding for the technology has also helped us to provide, I think, better information for court proceedings, and hopefully that helps on the prosecutions and telling the story.
I would say this: body cameras, video recordings of interview have overwhelmingly helped the state of North Carolina and the law enforcement, because they show that law enforcement officer, what he said was true, or what she said was true, and I think that. Video recordings of what we're doing, we don't have to hide from that. We want people to see what we're doing.
It corroborates what is taking place.
Yeah, and it also, because these things are turned over to the defendants beforehand, a lot of times it results in a plea because they know what's coming. And so I think that overwhelmingly it's been a good thing for the state of North Carolina. But there are issues with storage. The average case takes more time than it used to, because the assistant district attorney, the district attorney, is having to spend so much more time reviewing video footage that we didn't have to do 10 years ago. And, there's lots and lots of, I've had cases where there's 40 discs, that takes a lot of time to review it. So it causes a little bit more work, but it's worth it.
But the thing is, with the documentation that's there, it helps you in your case preparation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, now you mentioned something here is some people might say plea agreements. Modern time, I go back to the old days of plea bargain.
Right.
A lot of people have a misconception of what a plea bargain is and how that works, and it's how it works within the criminal justice system, particularly in consideration for trials versus no trials. Right. Can you explain a little bit in your words what a plea bargain is and how it works and how it comes into play?
Well, I've had people say to me before, you shouldn't plea bargain in any case. And they mean well, and I understand the philosophy behind that, but literally our system would collapse without plea bargains, right? To have a jury trial, you have to summon sometimes 100 jurors, 200 jurors. Cases take a week to try. Some cases longer than that, some are shorter. But there's a lot of effort and time that have to go into a jury trial. Well, in Rockingham County and in Caswell County, which I'm the DA of that as well, there's thousands of felonies and probably tens of thousands of misdemeanors and infractions that are charged every year. And and if you tried every one of those cases, literally you may be able to do 50 or 60 per year. And a plea bargain doesn't mean that you're just giving the courthouse away, as they would say, right? You evaluate the evidence. How strong is your case? What's the record of the defendant? What's the magnitude of what type of charge has been issued? Your witnesses, their credibility. There's a lot of things that go into that that you reason out, and then you determine, well, the stronger their case, the worse the plea offer, in most cases. The weaker the case, maybe the stronger or the better the plea offer for the defendant. But all that stuff goes together, and you can make an analysis, and then you do that. But if you didn't do it, there wouldn't be justice, because cases would be impossible. There'd have to be hundreds of ADAs, thousands of more police officers, thousands of more judges, and jury trials are not, they're sacred, and going back to ancient Greece all the way up to the Magna Carta, and I believe in jury trials. I believe we have the best system in the world. Only 10% of the world has the right to a jury trial, and we should be very thankful for that. But plea agreements are necessary to keep the cases moving, and jury trials are reserved for the ones that are really pleading not guilty, and we let a jury decide their fate, and we've done a lot of those.
Okay, so well, one thing I think you mentioned it, but I'll go ahead and mention again, is when you are considering a plea bargain case with all those factors, another component is the victims in the case.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. The victims of the case. What are their desires? What are we going to do to make them whole? And whether sometimes they don't want to testify, but. And we can avoid that process through a plea agreement. But at the end of the day, if a person pleads not guilty and we have the evidence, we're going forward with the trial, and we'll let the jury decide their fate.
Okay. All right. And I appreciate the explanation, because a lot of people do not understand that. When there's different courts, you've got the district court, you've got the superior court. You've got your appeals court, you've got your North Carolina Supreme Court and stuff like this. But basically, when you're looking at a district court compared to superior court, the district court is primarily what type of cases are tried in district court?
District court is a creation of the state of North Carolina, which basically allows misdemeanors and traffic offenses to be tried before a district court judge. There's no jury in district court for criminal cases. If the person is found guilty, they have a right to appeal it to superior court for a new trial in front of a jury. So their right to a jury trial has not been taken away by having district court, but district court clears out most misdemeanor cases, so therefore we can focus on felonies for superior court. And in order to get into superior court, you have to be indicted by a grand jury that meets and decides that there's enough evidence to proceed against you to trial. And superior court's a place where you have jury trials and your more serious cases like felonies. We have a thing called administrative traffic court, and that person who's charged with a traffic offense that's an infraction or a low-level misdemeanor.
They can be heard in the administrative court.
Right. There's no judge in there. They just
Who handles that case?
The assistant district attorneys or the district attorney, and we can negotiate a plea on these traffic offenses with the individual or their attorney. If they want a trial, then we move it into district court. But administrative traffic court has really expedited the process of getting cases moved quickly, and that district court can be reserved for more serious misdemeanors like driving while impaired, assault on a female, larceny, cases like that.
Okay, so but a person, if they're assigned to go to administrative court on a minor traffic, like you said, infractions, stuff like that, if the person wants to have an attorney, they can obviously hire an attorney
Absolutely.
if they want to, but they don't necessarily have to have one.
No.
Yeah.
They don't have to have one.
Yeah. That's their call.
In some of these cases, they're allowed to pay the ticket off even without coming to the court. Mm-hmm. They can go to the clerk's court's office and pay the ticket, or they can pay it online. So they're what we call waivable offenses. But yes, these are literally, we're talking about infractions. And technically, an infraction is not a crime.
That's right.
All right, it's an infraction. And the only thing that can be done is court cost and a fine.
It's no jail penalties for
right.
an infraction.
You can't get probation, right? You don't have anything like that. It's just court cost and a fine.
Okay. A lot of times, we communicate on a lot of our particular our serious cases, and of course, you said if we have a question on the criminal law and stuff like this, we can go to you and ask you a question. Sometimes, a lot of times in serious cases where persons have been arrested, you're limited on what you can say. And I know a lot of times the public wants to know, what's
right.
going on. And I, as a sheriff, try to be as transparent as I can. I know you're always transparent, but you're still restricted. And then I have some restrictions. Can you tell about kind of how you're restricted under the law as from the legal profession?
Well, My conduct is governed by statute, but it's also governed by the North Carolina Rules of Professional Conduct that applies to lawyers. And there's rules that specifically apply to prosecutors, but prosecutors are ministers of justice, right? And it's our duty not to just seek convictions, but to seek justice. And justice requires that we protect the rights of defendants. And if I make too many prejudicial comments while a trial or while a case is still pending against a defendant, I could poison the jury pool, as they say, meaning that the jury...
How could that impact? Tell me about that.
Well, the jury pool, which is just a collection of citizens
local
that are local, because you have a right to be tried by a jury of your peers that are from the same county where the crime was committed. But if we don't want the jury to know too much from the prosecutor's standpoint about a case beforehand, and we want them to come in with a fair and open mind, both to the state and to the defendant. But as a minister of justice, I'm not only seeking convictions in appropriate cases, but I have to seek justice. And justice requires that every person is treated fairly and is allowed to have a right to a fair trial before an impartial jury. So I know in
order to maintain that.
Right. It aggravates the media, I think, that I don't answer questions about pending cases. But I'm not going to do that because I got to protect the rights of the defendant and the integrity of the investigation. And I'm in a little bit different boat than you are. You're not under the same requirements as I am, but you may let for transparency's sake, you want to let the people know what's going on with law enforcement, what busts that y'all do and all that, but I'm under different rules.
But I still have to be aware that some things I say could also, dealing with jurors, could affect that also, and that could cost days and time and a lot of work, if we're prejudicial toward a defendant, something like that.
Right.
Because the key thing you said, fair trial.
I want a fair trial, impartial trial, because if they don't get a fair trial, I'm going to have to do the case again, or somebody else is going to have to do the case again. I want the trial to be free of error. I want the assistant district attorneys to follow the rules of evidence, the rules of criminal procedure, to make sure that we don't enter in evidence that shouldn't be allowed in, because the Court of Appeals or the North Carolina Supreme Court may turn around and make us overturn the results, and then we have to try the case again, and that's very bad for everybody involved. It's bad for the victims because then they have to relive the trial again and go through it again. It's bad for law enforcement, and it's bad for us, and it's not efficient. And I want to do everything I can to make sure that we put forward the best, cleanest trials, so that when someone's convicted, that conviction stands. And I want to make sure that people who are not innocent people do not get convicted, and that's a big duty of the district attorney, and I take that very seriously.
Same way here. Well, we want the persons that are responsible, that have done the crime, want you to move forward, and at the appropriate time. Well, we want to see a conviction and persons serve the time, and we want to see justice.
Amen.
Fair justice.
And I'll say this, I think people need to understand, I represent the state of North Carolina.
That's exactly right.
Okay? And the state, a crime is committed against the state, right? And we as a society say, this behavior is unacceptable and we cannot tolerate it. And I have an awesome power, but also responsibility representing the state of North Carolina, and I have to do what's the best interest of the state of North Carolina, which is the people, because the state is nothing more than the people that live in North Carolina in my district, and sometimes that means that some individuals involved are not going to be happy with the results or with my decisions, but ultimately I represent the state, and it's my duty to do that to the best of my ability.
Okay. And great explanation here. Now, Marsy's Law talks about victims' rights.
Yes.
It came into effect in November of 2018, and basically it was an enhancement of victims' rights.
Right. Marsy's Law started, I think, in California, but it's kind of spread across United States, and it just encapsulates certain rights for victims, and in a lot of cases that we notify them of hearings that they want to be at, talk about what the plea offers are going to be or any deals with them beforehand, let them be there to speak to the judge and give them the chance to do that. But thankfully, North Carolina already had basically had a lot of those rights encapsulated by statute for victim rights, and so it's really not been too onerous. I mean, it's increased the level of paperwork that my office has to do, but it's been it's a good thing for victims of crime.
But we're both bound by Marcy's Law to make sure that we do certain things.
Yes.
Dealing with victims' rights, and we always, I always say I put the victims first.
Absolutely.
All right, now here's another thing. Juvenile court, they raised the age December 1st, 2019. Juvenile age was raised to 8 from up and when you turn 18, you're considered an adult now.
Right.
Similar as federal law. Before, when you turn 16, difference between juvenile court and adult district court, for example.
Juvenile court is designed to restore juveniles and help them to be productive adults. It's not just to punish them. 16 and 17-year-olds, or before, when I first started, were considered adults for criminal purposes. So their cases would go straight into district court if they committed a crime, or superior court. Now they go through juvenile court, which the benefit of juvenile court is that what happens in juvenile court is not open to the public.
So
right?
It's protected information.
Their criminal record and things like that. But when somebody commits a serious felony, we have a process where even though they're a juvenile, I can still have it transferred to adult court. I just got to go through this process whereby I bring it before a judge and it gets transferred to superior court. But the theory behind it is that juveniles' brains are not completely developed even until they're even in their early 20s. And sometimes
right.
They make some bad decisions that we don't necessarily want to have hanging over them for the rest of their lives, or minor crimes.
And too many times we see people that make mistakes when they're young, and it affects them in their adult life. That's why when we go to schools and talk to the kids, we tell them, you've got to pay attention to what you're doing. You've got to try to make good decisions, because some things you do, some acts you do, can follow you.
Right, and in juvenile court, they're given a court counselor, which is like a version of a probation officer, and they're given access to so many programs that will help reduce the likelihood of recidivism, or that they'll commit a crime again. And like I said, we've transferred several of them to adult court. I don't want people thinking that that anything that you do as a juvenile, you're not going to be held accountable for. You commit a serious crime, you're going to be transferred to adult
Juveniles
court.
can be, and get a free walk. You can be held accountable.
Right.
Well, I got to jump. I got to jump here.
All right.
Recovery court. I know. Just briefly. Recovery court and addiction.
Okay. When I first started as a assistant district attorney, you barely saw any cases for possession of heroin. I didn't even know what fentanyl was back then. Mm-hmm. Over the last few years, the number of overdoses, the number of people being charged with possession of meth and heroin has exploded, and recovery court is basically a specialized court for drug treatment and mental health treatment that one of our district court judges, Judge Christine Strader, she's kind of the lead on
We're going to try to talk to her next month.
Yes, but we're coming together, and we're going to try to let certain people that go through this very onerous process, whereby if they complete drug treatment court, which will require that they have to take drug tests all the time, be monitored by a probation officer, get a job, complete treatment, a lot of things. We're trying to address the root cause, because if not, they just cycle in and out, and you can't put people who get charged with possession of heroin in prison forever.
And you can't arrest your way out of addiction.
And you can't arrest your way out of addiction. So we were able to get private funding through the KB Reynolds Foundation to and get a lot of stakeholders together. We're trying to hire someone who will be the coordinator of that and get it off and running. We were close a couple years ago, and then when COVID hit, it shut everything down, and we almost had to start over. But it's basically, it's going to help. We're trying to get some people out of this so that we don't have to keep seeing them over and over in the court system that need a second chance and that are likely to succeed.
Okay, now as a district attorney, you just don't sit in the courtroom. You're not in your office all the time. You also participate in other organizations. JCPC, Juvenile Crime Prevention Council.
Yes.
That's one organization that you actually chair.
Yes.
Any collaboration on that?
Well, the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council is just a partnership between a lot of stakeholders, including the sheriff, police chiefs, youth services, and other entities in the community that try to provide counseling, resources for troubled juveniles and youth to get them on the right path so that we don't have to worry about them when they become adults.
Real quick, Family Justice Center and its importance.
Okay, we are very blessed in Rockingham County to have the new Family Justice Center. I'm also on the board of, well, we call it HELP Incorporated, but it helps victims of domestic violence, children of, abuse physically and sexually, and we have this brand new state-of-the-art facility that it's going to really help us with getting people help.
A one-stop shop where all these collaboration, we can all come together and help these victims square one place.
Right. They have also a shelter for battered spouses.
Our executive director is Angie Bowles.
Angie Bowles.
Been there for several years.
She'll probably be a good podcast guest one day.
She's coming up.
Oh, is she? Okay. But they do a lot to help victims get domestic violence protective orders, work with us. We use their Child Advocacy Center. They have experts that know how to
forensic interviewers.
Forensic interviewers that know how to interview children. You can't just interview a child the same way that you interview adults, especially when it comes to very sensitive subjects. And they have been invaluable in securing justice against a lot of sexual predators and violent people, and I'm very thankful for them.
And working with the Family Justice Center, it also helps you as a district attorney in the prosecution. It helps you to get the information you need for successful prosecution of these type cases.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I want to say this is, first of all, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you as our district attorney, Jason Ramey. You do a great job. You got a great staff. Where we got high hopes. We're going to continue to do some good things. We're looking at all our other technologies that are coming online. But again, we just want to tell you we appreciate you being here today. Again, Rockingham County is blessed to have you here.
Appreciate you,
I want to say thank you.
Thank you, my friend.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is Sheriff's Spotlight for April 2022. Appreciate everybody watching. If you have any questions or anything from this interview today, feel free to give me a call. And again, we appreciate you watching. Thank you, and we look forward to seeing you in May.